Good morning, Year 5s. I hope you are well and you have been enjoying your day so far. Right, I thought it's going to be really beneficial to just revise yesterday's work as our starter. I had a look at many of your answers. Some of you understood it completely, and that's wonderful. And you guys can skip through today's starter if you got more than 8, I would say. For those children who were struggling a little bit with this, let's just revise this concept because it's not difficult. I know it's going to probably take a little bit more time to understand, but I'm very confident that you can do it. And so let's go through it together. Right, so I've just snippied questions from the quiz that you did. So these are the exact same questions, and I'm going to go through them together with how we're going to work it out. Right, so we have, first of all, we have our 2 fractions. Now, step number 1 is that I have to find the common denominators. Okay, I have to make the bottom numbers the same. I cannot do anything to the top numbers. I cannot say 1 plus 3. Okay, you got to imagine that these are apples and these are bananas. We cannot add them if they are the different. They have to be the same number. So that is step number 1. That's a very important step. So I'm going to look at the biggest number. Can you please tell yourself what is the biggest number? Is it 3 or is it 6? Right, the biggest number is 6. Good. So I'm going to then look at the smaller number now and say, can the smaller number go into that bigger number? And yes, it can. Well done. It can go in equally twice. So I'm then going to make my bottom number 6. Okay, all right. So now I know that both of these numbers are going to be 6, and that is the bottom number. They're both the same. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to make the bottom numbers the same by looking at them, looking at the biggest number first, then finding the smaller number and saying, can the small number go into the bigger number? Yes, it can. So therefore, if that does happen and I can make that number go in equally, then that is going to be my bottom number. Now, what I need to do is I need to make equivalent fractions because I cannot suddenly say 3 and 6 are the same, okay? I have to make an equivalent fraction. So what that means is if you do your setting out like we did before with our equivalent fractions, okay, remember my bottom number is 6 here. I would then draw my arrows, okay? And I would say, what did I do to the 3 to get 6? I times it by 2. And remember, we pause. 3 times 2 is 6. And then at the top, I do exactly the same. And 1 times 2 is 2. Now I put the 2 there, okay? And another way to do that is to just put arrows going down like that. And I say, what did I do to the 3 to get 6? Because this is the bottom number here, and here is the bottom number here. And I say I multiplied it by 2. So whatever I do to the 1 number, I must do to the other number. So 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, another way to set it out is to do it underneath like this, so that you can do it the same method that we've been looking at with equivalent fractions. It's just easier to do it going down because you're working going down. But if you do need to have a little extra step to do it underneath, you're welcome to. And the same here. Okay, now this one, put my little arrow here. I say, what did I do to the 6 to get 6? I didn't do anything, so I'm not going to do anything to the 3. Okay, so if I had to write this fraction out, okay, equals, and I put my bottom number as the 6, there it is, all right? I did my arrows if you needed to, and you would actually just be timesing it by 1 really. And 3 times 1 is 3, okay? So I've done nothing to the 6 to get 6, so I leave the top number the same. Remember, equivalent fractions means it is equal, okay? So if I had a shape, let me actually draw this shape because that is going to look really bad otherwise. So if I had to draw this shape, let me get 2 little, okay, and now I'm not going to be exactly equal, but we know that fractions are equal, but for the sake of understanding, and this bottom number tells me how many times I've divided this shape. I've divided into 3 equal parts, so roughly equal. And this shape here, I'm making an equivalent fraction of a third. But now I want it to be divided into 6 equal parts. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, imagine that they are equal. And now if I had to color in one of these, okay, there's one of the three, and here's 2 of the 6. So there you can see I've made an equivalent fraction. It's still the same amount. That's why it's called an equivalent fraction. It's got that word equal, the same amounts, all right? But I've just taken this shape and I've divided it into 6 parts now, okay? Which simply means that 2 of those parts are the numbers that go at the top there. Right, now that my numbers at the bottom are the same, I can then add the top numbers. So 2 plus 3 is 5, and I leave the bottom number the same. I don't change this bottom number, I leave it the same. Right, let's do the next one together. Just move this down quickly. Okay, again, this is another question straight from your quiz, so it's no different. So step number 1, I need to make the bottom numbers the same. So to make the bottom numbers the same, I first look at the biggest number, which is 18. Well done. 18, and I look at then the smaller number and I say, can 3 go into 18 equally? Yes, it can. So I'm going to put 18 as my bottom, as my bottom number. Right. Now I'm going to make an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to draw the arrows going down. And I'm going to say, what did I do to 18 to get 18? I did nothing. So what must I do to the 1? I do nothing to the 1 as well. Now this one, I have changed it. I've gone from 3 to 18. So if it's going to help you to write it, okay, like we've been doing, and we do our missing values. Right, what did we do to 3 to get 18? We multiplied it by 6. And what did we do to, so whatever I do to the one number, I must do to the other. So I'm going to say 2 times 6 is then 12. And then I've now got 12, 18. So I'm going to put the 12 here. And now I'm going to add them. Okay. And now I say 1 plus 12 is 13. And I leave the bottom number the same. Okay. All right, let's do another one together. Right, step number 1, I need to make the bottom numbers the same. They need to be the same. I can't work with different denominators. So I look at the biggest number, which is 24, and I say, can 6 go into 24? Yes, it can. So my bottom number is going to be 24. Right. What did I do to 24 to get 24? I didn't do anything. Okay, if you really want to be technical, you could say you times it by 1. And so 17 times 1 is going to be 17. Right, what did I do to 6 to get 24? I times it by 4. So whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. So I'm also must times this by 4, and I get 20. Okay. Now that my bottom numbers are the same, I can then add my top numbers. So it's going to be 37 over 24. Right, now I've got one that, let me just quickly just move this down. I've got one that has 3 numbers, okay, 3 fractions that I'm working with. So I now need to find a number that all 3 of these numbers can go into. Okay, now if we don't know, we can write the multiples. So if I write the multiples of 6, I'm going to say 6, 12, 18, 24. And I normally just do the first 4. Then I've got 9, 18, 27, 36. And then I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, And now I need to keep going, and I'm always going to start with the smallest number because these numbers at the top will just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and this 3 needs to catch up. So 15, 18, 21, and I'm going to stop there. Now, can you see if you can find a number that appears in the 6 multiples, in the 9 multiples, and in the 3 that is the same in each? Good job. It is the number 18. 18 appears here, 18 appears here, and 18 appears here. And we call that the lowest common multiple. So now that 18 is the number that all 3 of these numbers can go into, that is going to be my bottom number. Because if I look at this biggest number here, 9, 6 cannot go into 9 equally. So I need to make the bottom number the same for all the fractions. And now I make an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to take 5, 6. Let me just move this down quickly. So I'm going to say 5, 6, right. And I'm going to say, if you need to write it underneath, you can do it like this, that you set it out this way. And making an equivalent fraction with 18. Draw in your arrows. Right. 6 times 3 is going to be 18. So I multiply the top number by 3 and I get 15. So then I write the 15 at the top there, plus, and I put 1/9 equals, how many 18s? And I say times by 2. So whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. There's going to be 2 18s, so I'm going to put a 2. And then I've got 2/3 equals how many 18s? And I say 2 times 6 is going to be 18. So I'm going to say, 3 times 6 is 18. So I'm going to say 2 times 6, because remember, whatever I do to the one, I need to do to the other. It's going to be 12. And then I put the 12 there. Now that all my bottom numbers are the same, I can simply add my top numbers. So 15 plus 2 plus 12 is going to give me 29. And I leave the bottom number the same. Okay, hopefully that is now making a little bit more sense. We are going to carry on with this method today, except instead of subtracting, adding, we're going to be subtracting. The last question we want to just have a look at is a little bit of a thinking one. It says, how many times must I add fifths to give me 1? So if I add a fifth plus a fifth, what is that going to give me? Now, because my bottom numbers are the same, I simply add the top numbers. So that's 2/5. Then I have 3/5, right? Say it with me. Then I have 4/5. And now, if I add another fifth, what are we going to have? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fifths. Now remember, quite a while ago, we said that when we're wanting to make a whole number, 5/5 is actually equal to 1. Because remember when we did mix to improper and improper to mix, we said how many times can 5 go into 5? It goes 1 whole time. So there's my 1. So how many times did I have to add a fifth to give me 1 whole, which is over here? So how many of those did I have to add together? Can you count for me quickly? Right, and you would have written 5. So I had to add 5 of these to give me a whole number, okay? Imagine if you had a shape, again, remember the bottom number always tells me how many times I've divided up my shape. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and imagine these are all equal. And then how many blocks do I need to make? How many blocks do I need to color in the whole block, to color in 1 whole block? I need to color in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 whole blocks to give me 5. I'm hoping that's made a little bit more sense for you today. Today's lesson is going to be exactly the same method, except now you're going to be subtracting instead of adding your numbers at the top. So same rule here. If my bigger number, if I look at my bigger number and my smaller number can go into my bigger number, then I would just use my equivalent fraction knowledge and then subtract the top numbers. If my smaller number cannot go into my bigger number equally, then I need to find that lowest common multiple, like we did here when we counted out the multiples of that number. Remember, multiples are numbers that I'm counting in. This is when we counted out the multiples. That's going to be exactly the same when we don't have the small number can go into the bigger number. So I'm going to do the first one, and then you're going to we'll do the second one together, and then I'll give you a few to do on your own. Right. So step number 1 is I must make the denominators the same. I cannot say 4 minus 1. Okay, 4 minus 1 is not correct. First step is my bottom numbers need to be the same. Right, so I look at my biggest bottom number is 10. Can my smaller number go into 10? Yes, it can. So I'm going to then make my bottom number tenths. Right, now I'm going to take these two fractions and I'm going to make equivalent fractions with this number at the bottom. If you want to write them both out, you can. So what have I done to 5 to get 10? I've times it by 2. So what must I do to the 4? I must also times it by 2. I just have a stop and I pause here and I have a look. Is 5 times 2 10? Yes, it is. So I must be timesing. So 4 times 2 is going to be 8. And I get 8 tenths. So I take that 8 and I write it at the top here. I now must not get confused because I'm subtracting. And now I'm going to say, what I do to 10 to get 10? I did nothing. And if you want to be mathematical, you could say you multiplied it by 1. So I just multiply the same top number by 1. Okay. It's sometimes easier just to understand that from 10 to 10, I did nothing. So I'm going to leave the 1, not going to change it. Right. Now that my bottom numbers are the same, I can subtract my top numbers. And I'm going to say 8 minus 1 is 7. And I leave the bottom number the same. I never change it. Right, let's see if we can do this one together. So on your piece of paper, will you write down this fraction for me? Right, so I'm going to go through the steps and then you're going to see if you can do it on your piece of paper before I do it on my slide. So step number 1 is, are my denominators the same? Yes or no? No, they are not. So I need to make my denominators the same. So have a look at the biggest number and have a look at the smallest bottom number. This is a 4. Right. Can my smaller number go into my bigger number equally? Okay. So if it can go equally, what is my bottom number going to be? Hopefully you have said 8. Let's make a different color though. Right. So I've said 4 can go into 8 equally. So therefore my bottom number is going to be 8. Now I'm going to split up these fractions on the side if it's going to help you. Okay. And you are going to make equivalent fractions. So now I'm going to make an equivalent fraction. So what did I do to 7 eighths to get something 8s? Okay, what did I do to 8 to 8? I did nothing. So what am I going to do to 7? I'm going to do nothing to it either. Okay, so this is the equivalent fraction I'm making. Right, now I have a quarter and I want to make an equivalent fraction. So I've got my 8s here and I'm saying, what did I do to the 4 to get 8? I multiplied it by 2. So what must I do to the 1? I need to multiply it by 2. and 1 times 2 is going to be 2. And therefore, I put my 2 at the top here, and I put my subtract. Now, it's very important that you're not going to add these numbers today because we are subtracting. Now that my bottom numbers are the same, I can then simply subtract the top numbers. So 7 minus 2 is 5, and I leave the bottom number the same. Hopefully, you managed to do that. Okay, right. Let's do one more together, I think. This one, I'm just going to tell you the steps, and then you can see if you can work it out on your own. So let's do 4/5 minus 2/10. Right. Step number 1. I'm not going to do anything now. I'm not going to do any working out. I'm going to give you the steps, and I'm going to see if you can figure it out on your own. And then I will go through it afterwards. So step number 1, are my denominators the same? No, they are not. Good. Look at the bigger number at the bottom. And can the smaller number go into that bigger number? Right. If it can go into the bigger number equally, then that is going to be my bottom number. So put your denominators down now on your piece of paper. Right, now I need to make equivalent fractions. So I've got 4/5, and I'm wanting to make how many tenths? So next to the side of your page, write 4/5 equals so many tenths. Hopefully you said that the bottom number is tenths. And work out that equivalent fraction for me. If you need more time, you can pause the video. If you've got that top number, write it down. Right, and now you're going to make an equivalent fraction with 2/10. So again, if you need more time, you can pause the video now. Right, now that your bottom numbers are the same, you can subtract the top numbers. So subtract your top numbers. And then what must you do with the bottom number? You're going to leave it the same. So let's see how you did. Right, so I first start with, and I say my bigger number is 10, and 5 can go into 10 equally. So my bottom number is going to be 10. Right, now I'm going to take 4/5, and I'm going to make an equivalent fraction of 4/5 to give me my tenths. Right, so 5 times 2 is 10, and whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number, and so this is going to be 8. So I have 8 tenths, and what I do to 10 to get 10, I did nothing. So what am I going to do to the 2? I'm also going to do nothing. Right, now are my bottom numbers the same? Yes, they are. So I'm going to say 8 minus 2 is going to be 6. And I leave the bottom number the same. Hopefully you got 6/10 as your answer. Right, let's see if you can do these two now on your own completely. So you can pause the video now and have a go. Okay, let's start. Right, so first of all, we need to look at our bottom numbers, and I look at the biggest number, which is 9, and I say, can my smaller number go into my bigger number? Yes, it can. So my number at the bottom is going to be 9. Right, now I need to make an equivalent fraction. So remember, this is my equivalent fraction, and this is my equivalent fraction that I'm making. So what did I do to the 9 to get 9? Okay, I multiplied it by 1. So I'm going to multiply 8 by 1. I'm not going to do anything to it because I haven't changed the bottom number. Now, what did I do to the 3 to get 9? I times it by 3. So whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. I also have to times it by 3, which is going to be 6. And now I need to subtract them. Remember, subtract and not add. So 8 minus 6 is going to be 2, and I leave the bottom number the same. Hopefully you managed to get that. Oh, my little smiley face looks a bit squint. Right, let's try this one. Right, first of all, I look at the biggest number and I say, can that number go into that number? Yes, it can. So I'm going to make my bottom numbers 15ths. Right, so now I say, what did I do to 15 to get 15? I didn't do anything, so I'm going to leave the 11 the same. And now I'm going to say, what did I do to the 3 to get 15? Remember, this is the same method of finding an equivalent fraction, but instead of setting it out this way, which is horizontally, I'm just switching it and I'm taking, see if I can, no, it's not going to let me do it. I'm taking this part here and I'm just putting the 15 underneath, okay? So the 15 here is just going underneath. Right, so what did I do to the 3 to get 15? I times it by 5. So now remember, whatever I do to the one number, I need to do to the other number. So now I'm going to say 1 times 5. 1 times 5 is 5. Okay, so I'll put that 5 over there. Now that my bottom numbers are the same, I can say 11 minus 5 is 6 15ths. All right, hopefully you got 6 15ths. So that is your lesson for today. Let's quickly go over those steps to success. So let's have a look. If I have, let's say, 3/4 minus 2/8. Right, step number 1. You tell me, what do you think step number 1 is going to be? Good. Make the denominators the same. How do I do that? Look, sorry, there should not be an equals to sign. So look at the bigger number and see if the smaller number can be divided into it equally. Right, then number 2. Just make this a little bit smaller because otherwise we are gonna run out of space. Right, number 2, step number 2 is then, if it is that I can make it, then I'm going to make the denominators the same number. So in this case, I'm going to make it as 8. Right, so let's just do some colors very quickly. So step number 1, I need to make the denominators the same, okay? And I need to look at my bigger number and I can say, can my small number go into my bigger number? Yes, it can. So I'm going to make that number as 8. Right, and that's kind of part of step 2 as well. Right, can you remember what we do next? Good job. We're going to make equivalent fractions. So let's use a different color now. Now remember, if you're wanting to make an equivalent fraction, you can either do it where you draw the arrows going downwards, or if it's going to help you, you can write 3/4 on the side equals, and remember you're making 8s, and you can then do your little arrows like you've been doing, and then whatever that number is, you can fill in, or you can simply just draw the arrow going down. Okay, it's the same thing. Here's the 4, which is over here, and there's the 8. And there's my arrow, okay? So just imagine that I've taken that fraction and I've moved it to the top. So now I say, what do I do to 4 to get 8? So I times it by 2. So whatever I do to the one number, I must do to the other number. So I'm going to say 3 times 2 is going to be 6. So I'm going to put my 6 here. And now I say, what do I do to the 8 to get 8? If you want, you can draw little arrows like that as well. I did nothing. So what am I going to do to the 2 now? I'm going to do nothing to 2. And then I put my subtraction sign in there to make sure that I am going to subtract these numbers. Right, 6 minus 2 is 4. And I leave the bottom number the same. Okay. So actually, let's make that a different color. So once you've made your equivalent fractions, you're then going to subtract the numerators, which is the top number, okay? And then the very final step is leave the bottom, let's write the correct term, denominators the same. And let's do some colors for that. So let's do orange. And we're going to subtract the numerators. So 4 minus 2 is, 6 minus 2 is 4. And then let's do blue, leave the bottom numbers the same. So if it's 8, I'm going to leave it as 8. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I will put up the steps to success in your file for you so that you can access this, so that you can follow the steps to hopefully help you. And hopefully that makes some sense. And I look forward to seeing how well you do today. Good luck, guys. You can now log on to Teams. There's also a code breaker for you if you would like to do a code breaker. But otherwise, I hope that you have a wonderful day of learning, and I'll see you back later. Bye.